Hello there, people of the internet. A while back I made a short, and this particular short got pretty popular, and it talked about why, technically speaking, against soft targets within the parameters that were described for it, a 5.56 round in its original form is just as effective against a human target as, say, a 30-06 M2 ball round or the M80 7.62 NATO round, because both of those are kind of designed to mimic one another. Those are a 150 grain bullet moving at about 2,750 feet per second, give or take. It really depends on country of manufacture and barrel length and a couple of other factors, but you're looking at around that bullet weight moving at around that speed. And whenever I had made my video talking about how within certain parameters a 5.56 round was as effective as a 308 round, I got a lot of people giving me a lot of hate saying, absolutely it's not, you're crazy. And to those people I'm just going to say, hey, y'all didn't even watch the video to hear what I had to say. So originally what I had said in that video was that a M193, proper spec M193 full metal jacket round, being fired from a 20-inch barrel, like what I have right here, that has a proper twist rate inside of it. In this particular case, it would be either a 1 in 14 or a 1 in 12, which we will touch on here in a second. That right there against a soft target, a gelatinous target, a human target, was going to be as effective as the M80 ball round or the M2 ball 30-06 round. And people did not like that. They're like, there's no way that that would ever happen just because the M80 ball round or the M2 ball round are dramatically more powerful. And then I had a bunch of people say, use soft tip rounds. And I'm like, that's not the discussion here. So to the people who are going to say that the twist rate does not matter, and they're going to send me some kind of video that some other YouTuber did showing that twist rate does not matter with 5.56 because it's just going to tumble and fragment anyway, I'm going to go ahead and say that 95% of those tests are done at point blank range, to where velocity definitely fragments and tumbles that bullet way before twist rate would have any real significant advantage. Now you take that same target, sticking it out at 150 yards or beyond, to where twist rate would become significantly more representative in terms of the destruction that you'll see, and the difference becomes quite significant. As a matter of fact, I'm running some tests myself, video coming soon. So where do we begin with this particular idea? I guess let's begin at the beginning. Back in 1955, CONARC, that is the Continental Army, yes, Continental Army Command, CONARC, they ended up instituting the Small Caliber High Velocity program. And one of their parameters to be met with this particular program was that the effectiveness on a human target with whatever small caliber high velocity round that they decide to adopt has to be similar and comparable to the M2 ball 30-06 round or the M80 ball round, which, like I said, we're going to use those interchangeably because they both send the same bullet at the same velocity. And we have seen there's legitimate gel tests out there where somebody runs a 308 round full metal jacket and the M193 ball round through a proper twist barrel, and the wound channels are gosh darn near identical. And that's just because the particular twist rate with the 55 grain rounds that the M2 ball round was, or not the M2 ball, the M193 ball round was designed to be spun at, the 1 in 14 and then later 1 in 12 twist barrel. That right there has the bullet not very stable. And I know that that sounds bad. Whenever I say that that has the bullet not very stable, a lot of people freak out about that. But I know that sounds bad, but that does not diminish the accuracy of the round, because it's still stable enough to maintain that accuracy. As a matter of fact, whenever you have a round that is not unstabilized, but barely stabilized, that tends to yield to better accuracy because it is spinning at a slower rate than a faster twist rate would normally spin that round. And that slower spin means that if there's any deformities with that particular projectile in any way, shape, or form, that slower spin is going to yield it to have less of an impact on how that deformity pushes that bullet one direction or the other. Just because it's spinning slower, there's less inertia. It's very simple scientific fact. So that 1 in 12 or 1 in 14 twist bullet, or twist rifle with that particular bullet, Once that relatively unstable round smacked into a gelatinous target and began to tumble, it would begin to tumble pretty much immediately, assuming that we are beyond the threshold of velocity where the velocity would just fragment the round because it's a lead core round. If we are touching out to, say, 200, maybe even 300 yards, and we have that 1 in 12 twist barrel, once that round, which is now at a significantly lower velocity because we're not shooting a target at point blank range, that significantly destabilized bullet is going to have a significantly better chance to tumble and do way more damage to that target than, say, a bullet would from a 1 in 7 twist barrel, which is significantly more stabilized. Whenever I bring this up to people and they can't quite understand it, think of it like this. If I have a top or a dreidel or something like that nature that I'm spinning on a table, if I spin it nice and slowly, it's going to fall over far faster than if I spin it nice and quickly. If I'm spinning it super fast, like say a round would spin much faster in a 1 in 7 twist barrel than it would in a 1 in 12 twist barrel, that fast spin is going to yield that particular projectile to more or less drill through a target. And we see that a lot, especially with green tip rounds. I get a lot of complaints from typically veterans who ran like an M4, which already gives you way lower velocities than you're supposed to get with that green tip round. They run those M4s with that green tip ammunition, and there's been some significant complaints about it. Like, the green tip round definitely seems to be one of those rounds that has a stigma about it, where the people who have never actually experienced it absolutely love it because they love the ideology behind it, because it's got a steel penetrator in it, and that seems to be the driving factor for a lot of people for whatever reason. But then the people who have actually used it, they're like, hey, this is trash, especially from our 14.5 inch barrels. So long barrel, proper twist rate, and you're going to find that your lead core 55 grain rounds are going to be just as effective from that longer barrel. Out to about 300 yards, which was one of the parameters that ConArc had set for their small caliber, high velocity program. Out to about 300 yards, you're going to find that the effectiveness onto a gelatinous human target is going to be pretty gosh darn similar. Now, I'm going to just say right now, I know for a fact we're going to have people say, well, I prefer the 308 or 30-06 because people like hiding behind things, and I can turn cover into concealment with a 308 or 30-06. And to that I say, there is very, very little that a 308/30-06 round can punch through that a 5.56 cannot. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to go ahead and put a penetration test down in the description below. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll even splice one in. But you're not going to turn cover into concealment better with a 308 or a 30-06 in comparison to using a 5.56. It's just not going to happen. The velocity of a 5.56, velocity is what punches through things, and that 5.56 round is moving anywhere from 400 to 500 feet per second faster than that 308 round. I get that the 308 round has more mass, but the velocity of the 5.56 just cannot be discouraged. And I'm also going to point out that a lot of people have brought up hunting. They're like, hey, I've shot deer with 5.56 and 308, and the 308 does better. That's a deer. That is not the parameters that we're discussing here. That's not the discussion. The discussion is that ConArc, for their small caliber, high velocity program, wanted a round designed to do equivalent damage onto a human target, a two-legged target, within 300 yards as the M80 or M2 ball 30-06 round. And it was achieved very effectively with that 20-inch barrel, 55 grain lead core round with a 1 in 14 or 1 in 12 twist. Originally it was a 1 in 14 twist, but they had issues with stabilizing projectiles at really, really cold conditions with that 1 in 14 twist, which is why they went to the 1 in 12. But both the 1 in 14 and 1 in 12 are stupidly effective on soft targets. I think that's pretty much everything I have to say on this particular topic. Hopefully you guys learned something here. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next episode.
I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.